Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants of this closing session. Thank you for being with us as we come to an end of a very exciting virtual World Data Forum. My name is Gabriela Vukovic. I am the president of the Hungarian Central Statistical Office, and I am also the chair of the program committee of this UN World Data Forum. The past few days have highlighted for us the need to support an ongoing evidence-based response to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the demand for data and statistics are greater than ever. Moreover, the forum has heightened our awareness that data and official statistics are a critical part of building back a more equitable, sustainable, and resilient future, and advancing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We have come together today to make a commitment to the global data community's response to COVID-19 through accelerated action on the implementation of the Cape Town Global Action Plan and the Dubai Declaration to finance and implement the Cape Town Global Action Plan agreed in previous forums. The statement is prepared by the high-level group for partnership, coordination, and capacity building for statistics for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, following an open and public consultation, and sets out key actions to respond to the data needs of the COVID-19 pandemic and for accelerated action to achieve the SDGs. We are joined today by distinguished panelists representing various communities. I will introduce them later as we move through the agenda. I am looking forward to hearing from them on their commitment to moving the data agenda forward and the exciting actions and plans they have set out. Towards the end of this session, we also have time dedicated for panelists to respond to your questions. Please send your questions in the chat window throughout the session, and also feel free to exchange ideas in the chat window. Before we proceed, I am pleased to announce the winners of the youth video competition. We received a large number of submissions from all around the world, from young actors in the data world, and with help from all of you, we have our three winners, who are I will only cite their first names. Ana, Andre, Francisco, Marta, and Tiago from Portugal. Asha from India. Joanna, Adriana, Maria, and Miriam from Portugal. Let's watch a short compilation of the winning videos.
This is our reality.
Data can help us change the world and make sure we don't leave no one behind.
In fact, when used responsibly, statistics play an important role in the functioning of our society. They allow officials to understand pressing issues, encourage transparency in decision-making, and help show the consequences that derive from governmental policies. Because of this, statistical literacy is essential for citizens to make accurate judgments of the information shown to them, and to play an active role in a healthy democracy.
of the winners through the links provided in the session description. I now have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Liu Jianmin, the Undersecretary General of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, to give his closing remarks. Mr. Liu, please.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all colleagues. Madam President, Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is a great pleasure for me to address the global data community as we close the first virtual meeting of the United Nations World Data Forum. I wish to thank our partners, speakers, individual session organizers, and experts, and I thank the participants from across the world for your active contributions of these past 3 days. I wish in particularly want to thank the government of Switzerland for hosting this forum. I'm proud that we are able to convene this important forum, especially at a time when there's no such expectation on this community. Indeed, you are working hard to produce the data solutions to support the response and recovery from the pandemic and to get us back on track to achieving the sustainable development goals. We are now 1/3 of the way into our goal to meet the SDGs by 2030. Yet the report we released in July this year tells us that the news is not good. Even before the pandemic, the world was not on track to meet the goals. And now COVID-19 is having catastrophic impacts and in some cases threatening to turn back the progress that many have worked so hard to achieve over the past years. To turn this around, timely and disaggregated data and statistics are vital. UNDESA has taken a proactive approach to monitoring the pandemic's effect on statistical operations across the world. In collaboration with the World Bank and in cooperation with the statistics divisions of the 5 regional commissions, we launched the COVID-19 survey of national statistical offices in May. Now, every 2 months, it is being undertaken to provide the data community with the information they need to support national statistical and data systems in these challenging times. A key finding is that many countries are facing funding constraints. They need urgent additional support if they are to ensure continuity of the statistical operations in these times of crisis. The surveys also identified the tremendous impact the COVID-19 pandemic had on all statistical operations. But it also revealed how many national statistical offices have accelerated the adoption of innovative data solutions. UNDESA works closely with the partners to support countries in their efforts to innovate and adopt new tools and technology. Our collective aim is to respond to the new data demands and continue to inform the implementation of the 2030 agenda. The Data for Now initiative, which will lead together with the global partners for development data, the World Bank and the SDSN, allows us to leverage new modern solutions to improve the availability and the timeliness of data. We also support the work of the Working Group on Big Data and to assist with the immediate needs of the COVID-19 pandemic. We launched with our partners a number of initiatives. We created this portal early in the pandemic for the global statistical community to share guidance and best practices to ensure the operational continuity of data programs. and to address issues of open and timely access to critical data during the COVID-19 crisis. With the Inter-Secretariat Working Group on household surveys, we created the COVID-19 task force to promote best practices and the lessons learned. And as a part of UNDESA's commitment to engage more and better with the data community, the global network of data offices and statisticians was launched this week during the meeting. This network brings together official statisticians, data officers of the UN country teams, data scientists, and geospatial information experts from national statistical systems and the whole UN system and other regional and international organizations. It provides a platform for collaboration, knowledge sharing, and technical support to build resilient and sustainable national data and information systems for the full implementation of the SDGs. Indeed, we are confronting a global crisis that requires a collective response. That is why all of you are gathered here at this forum. There's a need to increase support for data use during the COVID-19 and recovery, to harness the power of data for the public good and get back on track to implement the 2030 agenda, to grow consensus on strategies to address trust in data and data privacy and governance, and to launch the global data community's response to COVID-19, Data for Change the World. Excellencies and distinguished participants, as we commemorate 75th anniversary of the United Nations, let us remember that the commitment to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and the 2030 Agenda remains strong. COVID-19 pandemic is a stark reminder of the need for global cooperation and solidarity. It is a reminder to strengthen our efforts to leave no one behind and to forge the transformative pathways needed to create a better world. I congratulate a successful World Data Forum this year. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liu, for your very important messages. It has certainly been testing circumstances, and we are really proud to have our data and statistics community come together virtually in these pressing times. We will now play another video. This will be a short video presenting the launch of the Global Data Community's response to COVID-19, featuring members of the Program Committee of the UN World Data Forum and the World Data Forum Secretariat. Please.
The demand for data and statistics is greater than ever.
Data and statistics are a critical part of building back a more equitable, sustainable, and resilient future.
We, the participants of the United Nations World Data Forum, representing national statistical systems,
academia,
private sector,
donors,
civil society,
the geospatial community,
and international organizations
have come together to support the response to the COVID-19 pandemic
and accelerate action on the SDGs.
We commit to working together
for high quality, timely, disaggregated, geospatial integrated, relevant data
that is open by default and respects the right to privacy.
We strive together and communicate information and engage with users.
We call for accelerated action. Create data to leave no one behind.
Promote data literacy and empower all users.
To maintain trust and privacy in data.
Develop capacity to modernize data systems,
including investment in basic statistical infrastructure.
Encourage the establishment of more data partnerships.
And increase investments in data to respond more effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic and future disasters.
Let's work together for smarter financing to meet the actions set out in the Cape Town Global Action Plan and the Dubai Declaration.
We are counting on you.
Let's work together to improve data for a changing world.
Thank you. And now let me introduce our esteemed panel. We have today with us Mrs. Milva Economy, the chairwoman of the Parliamentary Committee on Economy and Finance in Albania. Mrs. Tatjana von Steiger, the deputy head of the Division Global Institutions of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Mrs. Ola Awad, the president of the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, and Mr. Julio Santalla, president of the Instituto Nacional de Estadística y Geografía of Mexico. To have more time for discussions, I would like to ask all participants to read the biographies of the panelists on the closing session page. I have a few guiding questions for the panel. First of all, I would like to ask Milva, Julio, and Ola, and please reply in more or less 2 minutes, not much longer than 2 minutes. How can we ensure the political commitment and funding for data and statistics from national government? Milva, can I ask you to start? We don't hear you. Sorry, Milva, we don't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. It's not so easy with this new adjustment of the WebEx nowadays. So they have made a new configuration and we are not yet familiar with that. But in any case, thank you very much, Gabriela, for organizing this event. And I think that for everybody that has been participating in this forum so far, we have recognized the excellent work that has been from managing committee, and it is a very pleasant moment for me to participate, but also I would like to congratulate also all the panelists that have been in other sessions for their professional discussion and consideration that they have presented in public, even in the virtual way. I have to confess that 2 weeks ago, listening to the Minister Alain Berset of Switzerland, in his speech, he mentioned, among other things, something that is very important for the work of statistics. The poorest and the most vulnerable population groups have to be made visible in statistics too. Only those who are counted count in political decision. We need the resources to build up and maintain a globally harmonized statistical system. And this is very true, in fact. It is very true because what we need so far is that we need to do everything to have a very strong business case in statistical production that we can have a kind of reliable to those data that can help us for long run in statistics and in policy making. But also from the other hand, it is very important to see how the governments of all those countries are committed towards the statistical program, and especially in this moment when pandemic COVID-19 have created a lot of difficulties in the normal running of statistical life in the countries. So it is necessary to adapt with these new challenges, but also from the other hand, it is very important that the Agenda 2013 to be achieved, and we have to have a new form of commitment towards what the countries have approved in their acting programs and in their resolution to achieve the objective of Agenda 2030. But the pandemic, in my point of view, have three big possibilities for funding. First, the government of each country have to support statistical offices with these new challenges. The second, and they have to review the budget, and this is in the country that I'm coming from, this is a kind of exercise that happened by the end of the year. So it's the right moment to see how much we have to support statistical office. But to support statistical office, from the other hand, statistical institutes in those countries have to be aware that they need to have a more tailored product to cover the emergency COVID-19. Another situation that is appearing in countries is that this pandemic has bring solidarity among countries. And so that solidarity is not only supporting human situation, but also supporting the statistical production. We need a solidarity even in exchanging the methodology and also the type of new from different different exchange in the region or globally. And from my point of view, also is very important that we have to consider how pandemic had influence in the society till now. So I believe that a part of how difficult it was to deal with COVID-19, we have seen some other possibility for more interoperability in the society. A lot of data have been exchanged through our administrative units. We have had a lot of exchange of data, and statistical office must profit from this possibility. And this need more innovative things to be supported in the statistical programs. And to do that, it is very important that one of the things that has been also in Dubai Declaration, that is the use of administrative data to be brought up, is also to be considered under this pandemic, because this is a new possibility for statistical organization. And there is a lot of attention towards the governments to use this possibility. For me, another issue.
Oh, Milva, we are running short of time.
The last point is that we need to have a better and strongly coordination among donors, because the donor coordination in a given country, but also in a given region, is very important for accelerating the statistical production in each country. Thank you. I try to be on time.
Thank you, Milva. I would like to ask now Julio, please share with us your thoughts about this.
Hello, Gabriela. Can you hear me? Good. This question about assuring political commitment and funding, a very important question, and it's very difficult for National Statistical Office to come up with a full-fledged answer to that. But giving some thought, I'd like to put it in two ways. I mean, there are two basic elements. One has to do with the demand for this statistical information. So in my view, what we need is that there's a grassroots demand for having this information. And in this sense, the participation of society, a lot of social organizations, and demanding certain types of outcomes will require a lot of information. On the other hand, we also have the demand from the international community. We share one common goal with the agenda for sustainable development. So therefore, we are all committed to fulfill these 17 goals and achieving that. And of course, the monitoring of those goals, we require data and statistics in particular. So we have the demand from the international community, we have the local demand from society. And therefore, most of the statistical agencies and government institutions should be able to provide that That's where the supply of information should come up. And that's mostly where statistical offices and statistical systems in each of the countries and across the globe come together. I mean, our own responsibility in all this question or this solution has to come with NSOs doing our job, which means providing timely, pertinent, quality statistics useful and that are fit for purpose to the demand that we're facing both from the society and from the international community. So therefore, we have to engage in an active dialogue with data users in order to be able to supply the right statistics, right in terms of the granularity, in the timeliness, etc., so that the government and also donors appreciate the value of our statistics, and then we can basically close the circle and make an argument that this needs to have a political commitment and enough funding. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Julio. Ola, please share with us what you think about how to ensure the political commitment and funding for data and statistics from national governments. Ola, you have the floor.
Yes, hear me now? It's national priorities. So statistics are part of the national strategies with the national policy agenda. It's important also for communicate and network, engage in communication and advocacy activities at the policy making level to raise awareness. It's very important to take the initiative as national statistical offices to approach the policymakers. So NSOs are not actually supposed to wait for policymakers to approach them. Another point I see it very important is about trust and visibility. It's important to enhance the confidence in statistics with the policymakers by providing the government with timeliness, accessible, relevant, and up-to-date data in building the national plans. One more point I also may add about dissemination, that it's really important that data should be really attractive in presenting it, and it has to be really very much user-friendly for all users, and especially also for policymakers. Mobilizing government funding for statistics is also important. A budget should be also allocated for NSOs as part of the government budget plans. Involvement of the government in the NSOs, big part of the advisory council for statistics is an example to get them really involved and reviewing and developing the planning process for the national statistical system. It's very important to engage and have more political commitment and funding for data and statistics for national governments. Thank you. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Ola. Tatiana, I would like to ask you one question also. What role does the donor community play, and how can international support be leveraged to promote increased domestic resources for data and statistics?
Thank you very much, Gabriela. I hope you hear me. Well, first of all, the 2030 agenda, which has been adopted 5 years ago, has been a wake-up call for the donor community on the importance of data. It goes without saying that the donor investment in data is crucial, but we have realized that the way we have invested so far is probably not the most effective one. We are also all in broad agreement that we need a data revolution, but now it is the time to transform this need into concrete actions with only 10 years left to achieve the SDGs. Data investment by development actors is too much focused on their own projects, project needs, and not enough on strengthening countries' statistical systems. So donors should transition from the short-term approach of quick survey data to a long-term approach focusing on empowering countries to build up their own statistical capacity. As a concrete example, Switzerland invested in the Palestinian statistical system for many years. We are very pleased to see that the Palestinian government now took over and continues to improve and strengthen its statistical capacities. This also illustrates that accountability has shifted from an accountability between donor and government to a social accountability from the government towards their own citizens. This shift is needed if the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development is to become a social contract between duty bearers and right holders. Further, to build strong partnerships between all the different actors, it is also crucial to have strong coordination and communication mechanisms in place. And therefore, the SDC, together with Paris 21 and the Bern Network, is working on a clearinghouse mechanism to help match countries' needs with donor investments and provide more and better financing for data.
Thank you, Tatiana. We just heard in the video key messages from the statement on the global data community's response to COVID-19, which reinforces the commitment made in the Cape Town Global Action Plan and the Dubai Declaration. I would like to ask now, Milva, what are the key actions that policymakers should focus on to implement the statement set forward as an outcome of this forum? Milva, your microphone, please.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Thank you so much, Gabriela. In fact, this is a very important question because, as Mr. Yulo Santanella said, there is a kind of pressure on statistical offices nowadays. From one side, they have to produce things that are required from the domestic environment. And from other side, they have to follow international standards, and the pandemic is in the between. So it's not that easy. But I think that from the point of view of political cycle in the country, it is very important to create an environment when statistics can be able to support policymakers for a long-run development in the country. And I can use some examples from Albania. We have created in the Albanian parliament a group that is mixed according to the political affiliation, from left and from the right side. And this is called MPs, Friends of the Children. And the idea is that we are going to support the future of the country. But to support the future of the country, we have to monitor the achievements of SDG. And to monitor the achievement of SDG is a duty of statistical office, but in coordination with other UN agencies in the country. And each year we have a progress report on how the situation is going. But this is not enough. We have created another mechanism, and this is a subcommittee in the Parliament of Albania to monitor the situation of the resolution of Agenda 2030. And this creates also a mechanism to see how the funds are going to be distributed among the achievement of SDG. And this is something in the domestic point of view. But this year is a very specific year because pandemia have created another emergency path. And we have to see how this emergency path will support the production of statistics for a good policymaker. Policy making in the country. It is not that easy. In fact, it is not that easy because even the tools and the instruments have not been so far developed. So we have not that much data that are disaggregate. And we have to follow very quickly how the situation in health sector, in education sector, and in labor market is going in the country due to pandemia. And what are the new things that will approach the situation in the country. So in my point of view, the political groups in Albania, but also in other countries, have to have in hand one mechanism, that is the adaptation mechanism. We have to see how the SDG are going, but from the other side, we have to have a kind of awareness about the science, how the science is going forward, that will allow us to achieve more flexible decision. And in my point of view, it's very important that we follow the evidence of science so far to see how we can help the production of statistics in the country. But we have also to consider that there is a limitation of funds now. More funds are going to the health sector and less funds are going to the other sector. But we have to cope with innovative ideas. And this is what I can say for the message that are there for the Agenda 2030 and for the Cape Town Global Action Plan. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you very much, Milva. I also have more or less the same question to Tatiana. What do you think are the key actions that the donor community should focus on to implement the statement set forward as an outcome of this forum?
Thank you very much. First of all, Switzerland fully stands behind the global data community's response to COVID-19. The pandemic has clearly shown us that getting timely and accurate data is absolutely crucial. And thus, our investments in statistical systems must be sustainable and focus on building the statistical infrastructure that are resilient and relevant. Basic data cannot be collected during a crisis. Hence, brilliant data must already be available. We really need that when we hit such a crisis like the pandemic. I would also like to emphasize that official development aid must ensure that the most vulnerable are not left behind, and to do so, and as emphasized also by previous speakers, governments should pay particular attention to the 20% poorest people of their countries, which are often sparsely reflected in national statistics. We call this the P20 approach. And to actively promote this approach, Switzerland mandated the NGO Development Initiative to work with the Benin government to collect data on the 20 poorest percent of the population, just as an example. And both the development and the statistics community are important and need to work hand in hand. This is why Switzerland brings together both of them at the next United Nations World Data Forum, which we hopefully will have and host in Bern. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Tatiana. Yes, indeed, we hope to meet in Bern in person next year. So I turn now to Ola first. What do you think the statistical community, we as a statistical community, should focus on to implement the statement that is the outcome of this forum? Ola?
Thank you, Gabriella. I mean, now we are in the post-pandemic world. We're talking about leaving no one behind. Everyone must be counted and everything must be counted. And better policies is built on disaggregated data. So from my perspective, it's really very important to have better funding and have a mobilization of domestic and international resources is very important. It's very important now with the modernization of national statistics and innovation. It's very important to invest in the new technologies within the data collection and processing and analysis. It's important within the coordination and strategic leadership on data and to enhance the communication with all components of the national statistical system to reduce the gap in needs between statistics. I may also add the multi-stakeholder partnership is also important, and working on joint a project to increase the complementarity in the implementation of activities between the national, regional, and international partners. Last point I may add is the ownership, enhancing ownership of statistics among partners during the development of the national statistical system is also a crucial point to add to the outcome of this forum. Thank you very much. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Ola. And now I turn to Julio. Julio, what is your view on how the statistical community can respond and can accelerate the implementation of the Cape Town Global Action Plan, and of course all the needs that are set for statistics?
I will build upon what Ola said about this multi-stakeholder strategy. One point of the World Data Forum is to bring together from the data ecosystem, not only the official statistics community, but also the private sector, academia, NGOs, as well as different kinds of users. So I think we have to work together very closely. As Ola said, we have to embrace other alternative data so that we can exploit big data and alternative sources, always with the stewardship of the national statistical offices, so that we ensure many of the quality and standards that official statistics can offer, but as well as learning from these other stakeholders. For instance, coming up together with the geospatial community in order to focus, to narrow down into small areas and see what is happening. Tatiana was talking about the 20% of population that is in poor condition. So we need to use geospatial data in order to see where these people are. And we also have to learn a lot about communication. For instance, building storytelling and other kinds of narratives in order that the common citizen can relate to our own statistics. I think that will also be very useful in terms of showing some of these things. For instance, yesterday, it was the launch of World's Women 2020, and it's based on 100 stories from women from all the world. And that's an example of very useful stories where statistics are embedded and can communicate, in this case, gender gaps in order to aim towards improving goal number 5. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you very much, Julio. I have one last question to 3 of our panelists, to Ola, to Julio, and to Tatiana. How do you think we can involve private sector to establish data partnerships, to increase data availability, and to complement foundational data systems? Ola, please start.
Thank you, Gabriela. Now it's important. I mean, before our national statistical system didn't involve the private sector. Now it is really very crucial to involve and engage the private sector involving within the data stewardship. So it's very important to engage with the private sector within really joint activities and getting the use of the private sector data. So it's a win-win actually situation in that perspective. Also, we can get use of also the advanced development of the technology in the private sector. And this will help us in more getting more really timeliness data in that perspective. So I'm talking about the importance of data stewardship, the importance of partnership with the private sector. I mean, now I'll give a few examples. Now we are partnering with the Palestinian telecommunication on data about telecommunication, which was really data which we were unable to produce before. Now, within our joint activity with the Palestinian telecommunication, we are actually producing lots of data that we are utilizing from the Palestinian telecommunication indicators. We are partnering with the Palestinian banks on the banking. Now we're developing for them banking sustainable values project, a joint project in cooperation with the banking sector to achieve SDGs. It's called Banking Sustainable Development Goals Values. So it's really very much important to engage and to partnership with them. It's still also with the private sector, communication and advocacy is also crucial. The private sector is involved in initiatives, in capacity building activities, in raising the awareness of the importance of statistics. We directly approach now the private sector, and I think it's really a very successful, way to move forward with them. So it's very important to have a kind of win-win really situation and involve them with the national strategy for the development of statistics. Thank you, Gabriela. Over to you.
Julio, would you like to expand on this?
Yeah, Gabriela, this is a very difficult question in my mind. I'm very happy to hear Ola's experience. Our own has not been that straightforward. I mean, the private sector has a private purpose, and it's for the most part profit-oriented. So it's difficult to find an exchange where statistics can be a purpose for their own. I think we have to see it in both ways. I mean, cooperation between a private sector and national statistical offices can actually provide two different benefits for the private sector. The first one is a social responsibility aim or goal. I believe, I've heard yesterday, but there are many people arguing that statistics are a public good, which means that they're for the benefit of everybody. So when the private sector can share its data to the National Statistical Office or to the statistics system, it can improve this public good, and it's a social benefit for everybody. And of course, it goes with a stamp, with a seal of approval of the National Statistical Office, and then it can improve the quality, comparability, etc. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit for the private sector could be a private benefit. Sometimes in many industries, the private sector is fragmented, so they can only see a small fraction of what's happening in their own industry. So when we collect information from the whole participation or from the whole actors in that industry, we can provide a whole view, an integrated or aggregated view, and that can obviously improve the value of statistics with this participation. So I think this is a tricky answer. I think we have to come up with a relationship that starts low and keeps on building trust through a maturing stage. At some point, we should be able to expand to further sharing of information.
Thank you, Julio. So Tatiana, what is your view from a very different perspective on how the private sector can be better involved and how they can share, or how they should share or could share data with official statistics?
Thank you, Gabriela. I'd like to build on what Ola and Julio have been saying and focus on the role and the respective roles of the private sector versus the public sector. I think it's important just to be aware of the enormous amount of data which is being generated by the private sector. And it doesn't just generate data, but it also innovates on data collection and use. So we have to work with the private sector. This is clear. However, the public sector in this regard has the responsibility to ensure the quality, completeness, and accessibility to impartial statistics and data. So there is a very specific role that goes with the public sector in this regard. And now what's the role of development agencies? Development agencies, they should participate in efforts to find a sustainable and inclusive way to promote a collaboration between both actors, especially in regards to leaving no one behind and thinking of these 20% we were talking about previously. As an example, from our side, to engage different actors in finding solutions, we are currently planning a Road to Burn event together with Facebook, UN Women, and the UN Statistical Division around the question, how can data from the private sector be used to produce gender statistics? So if data is a public good, and we work together, we then can ensure that public data is used for the common good, contributing to the achievement of the SDGs, and very much so to leaving no one behind. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you, Tatiana. We have a little time for questions. We have one very interesting and very complex question from the audience. What can you advise to facilitate data sharing in our countries between private sector and public sector in order to close the data gaps of SDG and to fight against the pandemic? So we are talking about how to facilitate this and sharing, which means not only private sector should share data with statistics of public sector offices, but the other way around also. Maybe this could be a question that, again, Ola, Julio, and Tatiana could answer very briefly, please. Still, if you can think of any facilitating circumstances, share it with us. Ola?
Thank you, Gabriela. Yes, data actually is a public good. And it's important, as I mentioned, it has to be a win-win situation. So, I mean, what now we're providing as statistical offices, microdata is very important, you know, to have an open access to all the data that we are produced and to the microdata that we are produced, taking into consideration the confidentiality in that perspective. So I fully agree. I mean, it has to be a win-win. So the private sector, they want to share with us the data, and at the same time that you have to be very much cooperative and you know, bringing and providing them with the data, with the microdata in a very easy manner. So this is really important. So facilitating the data sharing, it can be in different ways. Now we're working on a hub, on a platform. We have a UNSDDFID project where we actually developed all of our metadata since we started producing data. So now it is very much accessible to all of our data users, including the private sector. They are actually asking also for extracting data. So we are very much open. And I would prefer if we can have a much development electronic, really developed platform. The optimum with now.
Thank you, Ola. Julio, briefly, please.
I think this is an area where we could get more international cooperation. We need standard contractual arrangements that can be used in different countries that are based on good experiences and good practices. It could also be helpful that a lot of the coordination is done at the international level, at higher level. Sometimes the headquarters of these multinational corporations are based in America or in Europe, and therefore a joint effort by different institutions with the help of international organizations could allow to set up different data sharing arrangements for different countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Tatiana, can you condense it in 1 minute?
I'm trying my best. I think one of the challenges I see, and I think we have to get better in that, is to start also start to understand each other's languages. Because only then we can explain from a public sector perspective to the private sector what the long-term benefit is for them as well in terms of data sharing. And there I'm thinking about the pandemic, and here we have good examples. We have also bad examples, but we have good examples of how the private sector, multinational companies are open to share their data because it's in their business interest. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Now we have come to the end of our panel discussion. I would like now to share with you a short video message by Mr. Tim Hartford, highlighting the importance of statistics. The author is a columnist for the Financial Times. He's also a presenter of the BBC radio show about numbers, more or less. And he's an honorary fellow of the Royal Statistical Society. So let's view the video.
Hi, I'm Tim Hartford, and I'm the author of the book How to Make the World Add Up. We've all heard the saying, lies, damned lies, and statistics, and I'm afraid that nerds like me sometimes play into the idea that statistics are chiefly used for lying. After all, there's nothing more fun than explaining statistics by pointing to examples of them being used badly or dishonestly. Some of the best-selling books about statistics emphasize the downside, with titles such as Innumeracy or How to Lie with Statistics. But that kind of skepticism can so easily turn to cynicism. We start with take nobody's word for it, and we're soon sneering nobody knows anything. The author of How to Lie with Statistics ended up working for Big Tobacco, trying to discredit the statistical evidence linking smoking with cancer. And the fact that that evidence was statistical, that life-saving discovery, it should be a reminder to us. Statistics aren't just a way to win a political argument. They're a vital tool. In my own work, I try to make the case that statistics are indispensable. They're like radar for air traffic control or a telescope for an astronomer. They show us truths that we can't see in any other way. We've seen in the course of this pandemic vast, almost heroic efforts to assemble the information that we need. Where's the virus spreading, and how fast, and why, and who's most at risk? But that sort of effort takes place in a calmer, quieter way all the time as we try to understand the world around us. Health, development, the economy, the environment. We're quick to chuckle about how to lie with statistics, and yet we take them for granted. We assume that the numbers will always be there when we need them. But robust, honest statistics don't just appear by accident. They require effort, and expense, and expertise. And I, for one, I'm grateful.
And so are we. We are also grateful. So we have come almost to the end of our closing session. Thank you to all the panelists who have been with us. Thanks to the participants who have followed the whole UN World Data Forum and, of course, this closing session. And we hope to meet in physical form between the 3rd and 6th of October next year. I would like to pass now to the floor to Mr. George Simon Ulrich, Director General of the Swiss Federal Statistical Office, who is also the host of the next forum in Bern. George, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. A lot has been said, and it's the last minutes of the UN World Data Forum 2020. Actually, this is it. This is the new start towards the road to Bern that I will invite you to come to Bern. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, the Swiss Minister of Home Affairs, Alain Berset, has asked us on Monday to actively participate in the discussion over these 3 days. I think we have all accepted this invitation. These were 3 very interesting days. Honestly, it was sometimes not so easy to follow online discussions over 3 days, but I'm sure we all missed the coffee breaks where we can mingle and to know each other. As you know, next year's physical UN World Data Forum will take place from the 3rd to the 6th October in Bern. We are confident that this will be possible, hopefully. Based on the high number of registration for this virtual forum, we are discussing to hold the forum next year in a hybrid form. This should allow all to be part of the forum next year in Switzerland, also in person or in virtuality form. Switzerland, or all we here, invite you to become part of the Road to Bern, which has the goal of preparing the discussion for the forum in October 2021. You can find all the information on your communication channels such as Twitter or Road to Bern. It's not only an event, it's something that we do together on the road to this place. So we have to use it in any way and everywhere. We have to talk about it and we have to do something. So I'm looking forward to welcoming you next year in Bern. All the best and see you soon. Thank you very much.